All right. Good morning, everyone. Episode 37. Uh, Now, let's establish some objectives so that we don't get lost. At this point, I think that the whole guiding thing has worked out. The negative scaling stuff is worked out. There is a small handful of things left to do before this can be taken to the finish line, which is, I mean, it could be done as it is, but we might as well do it properly so I can make this scene and the assets available, which is re-exporting the components, bringing them in to the other side to ensure that the work is expected for, non-inverted handiness as well. And if that works out for us, then I believe we're done. And then the next and only step will be bringing in some geo, ensuring that the guide works that the whole thing works actually by using the guide to conform it to this geo live and then bind it, and then we are done and we can move on to profiling. Now you will hear a lot of baby noises in the background. There is nothing we can do about that. I hope you like baby noises. So, with all of that said, the next thing I always forget, I need to put this in the startup. It's just that I run more than one Maya session depending on what I'm doing. The only plugin that I'm gonna be using is the one that we've been using in the past episodes. It's always the same thing. It's just the one to guide the guide, and that is just for convenience and for guides. Otherwise, the rig itself is still plain vanilla Maya. So I should have done this pre-stream, shouldn't I? All right, we got the plugin. It's the one you can find off my GitHub. It's the one that's been used for weeks now. So, exporting assets, we have gone over again. It's actually pretty decent pass. Usual quality checks will be looking, in this case, at legar, make sure that we have everything we expect in here. So my expectation is that if the component is called legar, and we make some exceptions for the groups that pull together, control the form and guide, everything else I would expect it to have legar in the actual name, and I would expect all of this to be contained. This is literally like really the kind of stuff you want to write a script for. So you can see, like, this is a pretty quick diagnostic. The handiness matrix is not in the container, so we can fix that super quick. We did rename a few nodes. We did not conform them, so this might be tiny for you, but unless you're at 1440p. These do not have the colored box. That means that they are container. This doesn't either. If I do a season 2, there's definitely gonna be a scripting session where I do build myself some tools, because this is painful to do and painful to watch, no doubt. Everything else seems to be containered as we do expect it to be. This should be hooked as the parent. So now if I remove that filter, I would expect to see everything here selected. It is, that's cool. And nothing that says some other component's name to be selected. And this should be organized alphabetically for the most part. Lego, like global, okay. Not a very Lego guide and or inverse matrix. Ah, yeah, that's okay. So selected. So yeah. So that is our selection. Now the only thing we need to do from here is to tell me we have the container selected as well. Yeah, if I export it with no connections and the container selected, my expectation here is that it's basically gonna be a valid component. So export selection, don't care for references, include these inputs. This should be just for the inputs, like if something is not oh yeah, that's okay. So something is not a connection between nodes that you are exporting, external connections, which we don't want in this case for sure. What I don't know is if it will or will not include the internal expression. With that off, I very much think so. My ask is fine. So let's see. Now, scene component, leg symmetry. Oh, I saved scenes in there. That's no good, but what can you do? Oh no, I'm just stupid. I was not looking at our database. So I should have components in here, and these will be our leg version 5. Riveting stuff, I know. So I don't think I've done anything relevant with this scene other than orbit the camera, so I'm not gonna... No, I have actually. I've recontainer something. So now let's open that leg 5 and let's see if anything is missing. Doesn't seem to be, not at first glance. There should be nothing that says that has any other component name, and there doesn't seem to be. The expression does seem to be in there, which is cool. So yeah, so our next step, now that we got that done, is to... Normally I would export all of the components and just reassemble them from scratch. In this case, I don't want to spend, you know, half an hour doing that because we're doing everything manually. So I am gonna say that I am gonna re-export what we changed, which is a bunch of stuff. So definitely the leg global, definitely the full. I think the God node has been fun for a while. I'm gonna delete the right hand side, get myself a new scene, and see how that goes. Now, another thing I like about containering, and let me save as a new major version, actually a new ID. So these will be component IO. Now, another thing that I like about working this way using containers for encapsulation, which for the record have a bunch of other things that are not great about them, is that it does, especially if you have the parent as well, it does give you pretty good control over getting rid of them real quick. So if I take foot L, leg L, and leg global L, I would expect that to be all of my right hand side, and I expect to keep leg R, leg global, God node and foot, and deleting that is pretty much all you need to do to get rid of the stuff. If everything was properly contained, we might have garbage sitting around, but and that's why normally I will rather export and re-import and reassemble everything. It also cleans your scene a fair bit. So that is done. Again, not the most riveting stream, but I think that it's a good enough review. So it's a process that I do encourage you to go through when you do your own components. Now, as a side note, I didn't want to trigger another scripting session and work in that for an hour, but I would save the connections in a JSON file or something like that so that I wouldn't have to redo them manually. But again, I'm also trying to get stuff done and get it out of the way this episode, because I really want to move to just binding and profiling this thing. So I was... okay, there is. So my other expectation is if I select asset contents from anything I want to export, that I will find everything that is of the same name. So same trick we had before. My expectation is that if I run that after I select the contents of an asset, everything is selected, and that everything is present as well. Now, the DAG is always trivial because you always get the top one with that token, so even stuff that is not named comes in, and if you have misnamed something, you will see it. Everything else seems to be in good order. The only thing that might be missing is if you did not name something and did not contain it, but it is part of the graph. That is a somewhat more painful manual inspection, I guess. to actually perform. So my only dub with these is that I had thought that this was part of, oh no, that's like global, so that's also correct. So the foot seems to be in pretty good shape. Daughter wants food. So same game. Oh wow. Yeah, this is Australia, so there's a very large birds on my balcony. Cockatoo, yeah. Very loud and very large birds. So the foot we've done once. This is not the greatest way to organize your components. Everything in the same folder, and I have to hunt down all of them myself later on. But again, what can you do? Foot done, leg global. So same thing. See, these I don't like. These I don't like at all. I do have blends and I did not name them. And that just occurred to me now. So, and that would have been in a leg. Oh wow. Yeah, and they do have an effect. So I might need to re-export the leg. Damn it. Because the leg, I think I just did by name. I'm not sure I did by component selection. So I'm gonna play that safe. Curse you. The problem of doing things manually. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting hugely distracted by my daughter. Now this is the FK. Is this the FKIK blend, or is this for something else? Or is this part of the guiding process actually? Because this is pushing. Nah, this is fine. This is the FKSRT being negated, and this is the negation as well. So these are just angle negations. Okay, fair enough. We know what it is now. Bad rigger. And this one is the handedness being negated based. Oh no, sorry, this is, oh, okay. Yep, I gotcha. So the text is gonna be super tiny for you to type it, but the idea is this is based on the handedness we negate or not the rotation, which makes perfect sense. And we do it for both Y and Z, which also makes sense the way we had sorted that out. So I'm gonna play it safe and I'm gonna re-export the leg. More riveting work. Now, leg global versus leg R. I say this is in alphabetical order, but most was, if I think I did say it's mostly in alphabetical order. Some stuff always does my head in a little bit, like you have leg R here and then you get particle cloud for no reason. Anyway, so this seems to be better than before. Now what I need is the container as well, and everything here. Oh, leg endedness was not contained. See, I should have done this check on the leg before. It would still have been fine, like it would have worked, because as part of the export this would have come through as part of the DAG. But if we were to write any tools, that would have been a problem. Like if we were to write any tools that rely on the container population. Boy, this is taking longer than I was hoping it would have taken, but let's get it over with. So like our container. Alright, that should be it for the leg, I hope. And I know the old one is busted, so I'm gonna rewrite history. Yes, I want to replace it. Thank you. I exported the foot already. The next step is the leg global. I really should have done this off stream now that I think about it. I don't know how learnable this is, but it is too late now. We are streaming and recording. If anybody has questions or something that they want to talk about, let me know. Because the excitement for this is about to wear off. I don't think there's a lot more that I can say while doing this. All the interesting things about I/O, the O part at least, have been exhausted, I believe. So leg global seems fine. It's possible that I find stuff when I bring it back together. There you go, the roll. The roll seems to be, so here you go. Man, doing this manually is painful. Leg global anim parameters roll. Oh, this is animation. Okay, we're cool. Because of the names and everything, it came out like that. But that is a function curve that is animating the roll. We do not want that. Moment of panic. And that should be it. That should be it for this riveting part of the stream, where you look at me glancing at an editor, at an outliner. So leg global, I think the only one we had was version 1 and we want version 2. All right. Now the question is, will it blend? And so the next thing we want to do is re-import the stuff and see if we can guide it and place it where we need it to be. Again, normally it's the kind of stuff where you spend a couple hours scripting and you can import the component and go like, look, if your LNR are pretty simple, you very quickly mirror it and mirror the translations as well if your guide is in word space, the same way that the ones on stream are. So let's do that. Do I need to change anything in this scene? I don't know. It's possible. So import. Let's start from the leg global because we know a lot of stuff depends on it. Now that should have come in namespaced. I thought. Okay. Yeah, to change. So this is me. Sorry, I should probably explain that. I think I've done so in the past, but it's been a while. So the way I work through these when I have to do it manually, and when you write it for scripts, it's not dissimilar. You give it a namespace because it will come in as whatever you exported it. So it will come in with names clashing all over. The DAG maybe not so much because the names are resolved in the DAG path, but all of our diginodes will be conflicting. So the renamer in Maya is, I'm torn about it, as in sometimes I've seen it doing exactly what I wanted and the right thing, and sometimes I've seen it doing nonsensical stuff. This is where we probably might want to write a script. So, because you can rename everything. Like name spacing is one other thing I like about it, which is you can literally just change the name and that's your name spacing changed. Let's write a later script to swap the side. What is going on? Oh, I'm not on Linux. I was trying to use Linux shortcuts. So, and we might as well just do it in Maya. So I guess as part of the I/O, you know, scripting is inevitable. I'm gonna increase the font size. What is it? Sorry, brain fart. From Maya.api import open Maya as on 2. let's make it so that it's readable and a lot less convenient. Now, how long we've been going for? About 20 minutes, so it's not terrible time. I reckon like a few minutes spent on scripting something to conform at least the names is not gonna be wasted. I'm on 2018 and I haven't installed charcoal yet, so this is gonna be more painful than necessary, but we might as well. Now, the first thing to do is get the selection. So if anybody's questions about the script or what I'm doing or the API stuff like that, go ahead, ask them. Otherwise, I'm gonna comment a little bit. And global is the static that gives you access to the current session. Is it get active selection list? I believe gets you the selection, which is not an iterable, so you want to grab the selection count, and that is, I don't remember if, like, I've been writing different APIs recently, so let's do some print debugging. So yes, it's length. I don't never remember if it's length or size. So for ein x range, which is an iterator for the range, Python 2.7 in Python 3 these wouldn't work. You will just want to use range. But in 2.7 and 2x, you want to use x range if you don't need an actual list. So count. I want the dependency node for each of them. So, is the text readable actually? I'm not sure why I picked this font. I normally have another selection. It does seem monospaced at the very least, but so current temp object equals that. Now rename is it too cool? Thank you. Do I have rename of straight up node? Is it? I don't need an MDG modifier for the rename. I can do it straight up from the MFN dependency, so I don't need the docker for that, I believe. We attach a functor to that M object, usual thing. And I think name is a method. Yep. So and after doing this, we might want to flush the undo because this might be destructive. So let's do that as well. Oh, come on. I think it's just straight up flush and do like that. So side change will require a simple replace, and we want to replace, and this is one of the reasons why I like to have the side as a single token in the middle with 2 underscores to the side, to its sides. Nothing else should respond to that in anything we've done. So, and I think we can do a straight up replace. And in fact, you can do 2 replaces. If you don't know what side you're working with, you can replace R with L and L with R in the same pass. And you get a good swap. So, what am I doing? Replace R for L. This is stuff that I haven't written raw in a long time. Let's see what happens here. I think that's... So that's cool. Then everything in there should be namespaced with to change. So we can trim for the length of that, I believe. So, and we want to leave the colon in because you'll root them for sure. So, and you can hardcode this stuff, but for now, I'm just gonna get the length of that, which is practically the same as hardcoding. Just makes it a little bit clearer to me what I'm doing, and that should be trimmable like that. So yeah, that gets us what we want. Now the other thing we want to know is if anything by that name exists. So obj exists is a good command. It's a query one. It's pretty fast. I don't know if it has access to the internal hash table of my or something like that, but it's by far the fastest way I've found to check if an object exists. And new name. If anybody has a better way, let me know. So that should be all false. Invalid syntax because I'm probably stupid. What have I done that is invalid syntax? So let me have a look up. Trim length equal that. Finally catching the stream. Hey Zess, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Too many consonants attached to each other. What have I done? So I've done something very stupid, clearly. Is replace not getting me what I want? So I thought that would have been okay, but no. Yeah, it was before. I will be honest, I'm just not seeing it. No, equal. I have forgot. Oh, thank you. I must have deleted it first. Yeah, thank you very much. It was a print. It was a print before. I just renamed the print to name. It's I'm blind. So all false, which is good. So anyway, see rubber ducking with the chat. Occasionally, you actually just get the solution right away instead of rubber ducking. So we're not gonna do anything complicated here. And fn dot rename node, tempted to say, and you give it the current temp object first and the new name second. So let's save this in, just in case. Since we're also flushing the undo while doing it. Error has not attributed the rename node. So these I need to look up because I just don't remember every single method. Or maybe it's just rename. Nope, let me look it up. These are all things that I've wrapped a long time ago. Or it might be that it's in the MDG modifier. So all I'm doing is searching the Maya documentation right now for the record. I was quite positive that you actually had a straight rename in there, but I must be remembering wrong. Yeah, it must be in the DG modifier then. Alright. Fair enough. Why was I convinced it would have been in there? I think it is. I know, well, I don't know for a fact at this point, it's obvious, but so okay. If anything has happened at all, we'll do it. Now that means I do still need the functor anyway. Into MDG modifier. And that should be able to modify anything. Rename node, cool. So that should be it then. Okay, that is not blown in our face and ruin our beautiful facial features. So run it on the container as well. Seems legit to me. Do I? Yeah, probably want to stash these somewhere for now. I might as well just save it. And I'll upload it on GitHub. Wow, it's been a long time since we last saved the script. Yes, there is a reason to write a wrapper for renaming nodes, even if you have the Maya commands. I don't use Maya commands with very, very rare exceptions. There's only like literally 4 or 5 that I use, unless they are query commands. I use OM2 for everything. This is true at work. This is true for my personal projects at home. I've accepted that, like I've made exceptions for that for the sake of expediency or to explain something on stream. But normally, like doing this rename with a command, like will do free undo for you. If you do it with OM2 the way I do here, you don't get the undo, so you have to manage the undo yourself. So very often you have wrappers for commands. Sergey actually wrote a nice article on one way to deal with a central undo for, you know, non-registered commands kind of style. But anyway, basically you start adding the need to manage your digi modifiers, because you wind them up in a certain order, and if you start interspersing digi modifiers and dag modifiers together with commands, it can get pretty tricky to deal with the undo stack. So eventually you build up a little bit of a wrapper for how to control Maya in a consistent way, because internally it's extremely inconsistent. Practically every single bit of Maya works slightly differently than all the other bits. So I also realize right now that I had my cell phone stream active at 1440p. That would explain why my bandwidth was that high in download as well. I hope it didn't interfere with the broadcast, but nobody's complaining so far. So anyway, there's a number of reasons, and it's not so much wrapping rename node, which is actually, you know, relatively straightforward. It's more handling the stack. So hopefully that answers the question. It's a bit hand wavy. Now, see, now we did miss something. Oh, I know what happened. So this is a silly thing. Okay, this is worth mentioning. I renamed the leg global container last as its own thing, because first I selected all of its elements. That doesn't select that. Now in the outliner, as I select that, you cannot see it. But you can probably, if I bring in the script edit, this is something you have to be super wary of if it's still the case. So let me make sure I am not saying something stupid first. Yeah, see, so you can't see it in the log. Let me zoom in. I've selected just the container and my selection count is 2. That is super nasty, and it's a stupid thing, and it must be some internal hackery that they're doing. But basically what happens is when you select this container, what happened unbeknownst to me, because you don't see it in the outliner, you don't see it anywhere unless you look for it, is that it will, if that container, and we do it for several reasons, if that container as part of its nodes has parent and child. I don't remember which of the two. I think either is gonna do it. Set up and you hook something. When you select these, both of these are just the parent. I don't remember because we have parent and child as the same anchor. Will get into your selection, but will not be passed through the filters that show you the selection highlighting in the outliner. Be careful with that. It's super nasty because you will not notice it until it's too late, and then you go like, why the hell is this L something? Additional nastiness that, you know, and it might be super tiny for you, that it's not a serif font, so you can't tell apart the capital I from an L. They look exactly the same, and that is because we just trim the length of to change. We don't, like, the right thing to do, to be honest, will be look for to change colon in the beginning, and only if it is there operate on that. But it doesn't matter. I mean, this just shouldn't happen, but it will. So if you work with containers, now you have been warned. And I think that is it for that. Pardon me. So, will our guide still work? Okay. The I/O seems to have gone well. We won't know until we hook up a bunch of stuff, but so far so good. I think we left the up vector separate, so 3.6. Wow, pretty close. No, not really. So I mean, all we want to do is get some symmetrical stuff going. What would be a good way to go about it? I don't care for the node editor at this point. I would not mind. Okay, sure. Complete tool. I'm not sure what tool that would be. I will not mind this primitive mean of quality control that is checking for occlusions. So if you've never done it, it's the worst possible way in terms of like how dumb it is to check if things are aligned. But if you go on a view that is, you know, side minus x in this case, and you select something this side in this case, or even everything in the foot control that is, do I have some selection filter again? Unbeknownst to me. No, I was hiding there, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm not gonna bother with that. So if you select a bunch of stuff, I want actually let global R. And if you're pixel perfect align, you go on from the occluding side, you should not see anything if you undo and redo. There should not be a pixel worth of change. If you have any misalignments, you'll see white flicker. Again, it's the kind of stuff I'd rather do numerically, but don't want to spend hours scripting, and that might actually, a good numeric check for symmetry can be quite involved. So now let global R and let global L. The other thing is when you select like that, when you import things, you get both sides pretty quickly. That is the guide up vector buffer, which I would expect to be someplace funky, like, yeah, centerward. So that's correct. What we want to move is the actual guide. If we've done everything properly, and as far as symmetrizing goes, it should be as simple as that. Oh, okay, sure. And this is the day of the riveting stream, so yeah, selection will go across, gets hidden. We have the handedness. Now we want to turn it off and see what happens. Like this being the guiding and this being a flat thingy. I don't even remember if we have handedness on the leg global. We might not. So that's the anim parameters. We want to get the guide. Tool parameters is for the, I don't think we have any tool settings. We were not doing handedness on the leg global, I believe, because we said it will be symmetrical in Word, and yeah, no, we're not interested in that. So that part is done. I guess the leg global is probably the easiest bit, but it's also what everything else depends on. 40 minutes in, we've done some IO and a script. So it's actually not super bad. And now the foot depends on the leg depends on the leg global providing the rows. So I reckon that next we want to work with the actual leg. Seems legit. So let's import that. The names, actually, let me check one thing, because this is another occasionally nasty thing that can happen. So if a namespace already exists, I think the namespace importer will just create another one for you. So these should now be empty. Select contents, yeah. It's absolutely, there should be absolutely nothing. Let global L container, that's probably the last thing selection. In selection. Is this telling me that my Lego global container is in the namespace? It cannot be, it doesn't show it. And I'm not hiding namespaces. Silly things. Anyway. Let's cancel that. Let's actually see if we have another bug here. So, I was just... Select content. See, it's getting me the leg global L container in the channel box. If I select the contents, it is not highlighting it here. And I'm curious, the reason I saved is that I want to delete the contents just to see if that is covertly contained inside this namespace. Yeah. And it will blast away all the work I had done. So that's a good thing I checked. I hope I'm quite positive I had actually saved the scene. Component IO O2, so let me go by date modified. Did I probably saved that inside components, which is stupid, but don't save, don't overwrite that crap. So when you do delete, you want to do merge with root, and it will not destroy your scene and all your precious work. Maya bug number 2. For some reason, that namespace decided not to appear in that container, despite the fact I renamed the container out of it. If anybody wants to log it, be my guest. At this point, I have too many unresolved log bugs. Quite a few solved ones as well, don't get me wrong, but I can't chase another one. Alright, that kicked me off my flow a little bit, but we can recover. So I would actually like to save these in the right place. It bothers me a great deal that I saved it in components. Okay, so that is not in the right place. Let's import something more. And for the import, I had only done leg global, yes. For the import, we say leg VO5. That's from today, a few minutes ago. So that would have appeared in there to change leg L component. Sure. To change leg R container. Sure, I like these. Now let's save this step as well and see how our script behaves. So I'm adding the container to things to rename. I'm curious to see if for some absurd reason now this thing will get iterated twice. I could like bulletproof the script a little bit more. It will take 2 minutes, but I actually want to see if something awkward happens with the selection. I have saved. No, I won't do stupid things like iterating twice. It will properly collapse into a set, which is very good. We would not have wanted that too. I mean, there's been enough excitement. Now the stupid men check of what do you want to save changes to? I have like the thing is, it will reopen exactly the same thing, and it's asking me if I want to save change. Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. So, what changes did I operate? Nothing. I had absolutely no changes. Anyway, so this is good. The stupid man check is, you know, see if you have any oddly shaded pixels. I really recommend that you spend some time, especially when you decide that you're ready to tackle some numerical issues about checking for the quality of things. That might seem trivial. Sometimes it's not with floating point and rotations, especially. But a stupid main check is still gonna be okay. And as the component imports, it imports exactly everything in the same positions, which doesn't mean a lot. It only means that you haven't done anything so disastrously wrong that the rig would evaluate differently of constants on import. But it's a free one because this will come in on top of the old one. Now, the way we controlled that one was with the hip position control guide. And oh, we actually had same values on that one. And -2, 1, so we should be able to simply negate that now, which is cool. The other part that needs work now is the connections of it. So you're seeing it going a bit wonky. That's okay. It's because it's still not connected to the up vector from here. It's like dog knows what's going on with it. Now, if we've done due diligence, and it worries me a bit that we actually let some config stuff going through instead of passing it through input and output, but we might still be okay. The work we need to do should be sure. I was hoping for less. The work we need to do here should be input and output. Come on, go out by 1. We actually don't even really care for the output. We only care for the input a couple ways in. This is the leg left. It's the one we're reconnecting, and this is why we're saying, look, I really should normally want to do this in a scripted form to save the connections to a JSON file so that it could be quickly redone. But anyway, so leg R component, if we look at the input for leg R, I would expect the leg global for the up vector and the ankle pose or something like that, and definitely the God node for the space of the hip. For that one, we only care about the input, as in the things going upstream like that. Tarsi angle, toe angle, leg global R. Was this de-guided when we did the work? No, it was guided. Okay. Oh yeah, fair enough. Darcy angle and toe angle. I was like, why aren't these going out? And it's that's okay because they're for the foot to respect. So it's fine if the leg, yeah, the leg is fully covered. So still don't love our names for the inputs and outputs, but they were done in hurry and anger. The word matrix should stay the same. Then row ankle control, row ankle, and up vector frame all come from the leg global. I like that. That's actually pretty easy because all we need to do is grab the leg global. See, it's the selection stuff drives me insane some days. We just want the same name and it will show me the hierarchy. I'm okay with that. And we want to get the same attributes connected the same way. These should be, and you can probably see at this point how it will be fairly easy to script these into submission instead of having to do this busy work. Come on, you can do it. So this is a pretty good sign in so far. I mean, the FK is still wonky, so there might be something missing there. I have maybe de-guided this one, because this is the leg global guide. Let's see. Or maybe did not guide properly. No, that's good. So it's possible that I'm actually I gotta admit, I'm actually pretty happy about this. Probably forgetting something with the FK. There might be a blend missing, there might be a mistake somewhere. This is not a bad way to troubleshoot your components. Now the other thing I want is, yeah, the IK seems to be working. We're still in guidey mode. It might be a bit early to test the response to the guide tool, because I would like to fix this first. But I am not displeased with this. I'm gonna put it that way. Oh, you know what? It's just the handiness. This is showing me these in the other handiness. So maybe everything has actually worked. So we would have that as part of the guide. I haven't renamed yet, have I? To change the form. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, I was complaining before about Maya having a bug. I was wrong. I was just playing wrong. What happened was that in what I was doing, I was only looking to swap L for R. So let me finish the inverted handiness thing first, and then I'll explain the mistake I've made. So don't log that bug. That was clearly me being stupid, and in these, it's one of those rare cases where Maya is not at fault. Where did we put? So you see there's a, it might be super tiny for on your screen unless you're in 1440p. This is called to change column guide, which it shouldn't be, and I just understood that what was happening before. Now what I want, however, is to remember, I thought the inverted handiness we had in config somewhere, and I would have expected that to be under the guide, but it clearly is not. So no, it's under control, which makes sense because it needs to go into the control. Fair enough. Okay, so that is pretty good actually. It seems like the component is still fully functional. So let me explain my mistake for just a second. In the new name here, I am basically doing the replace and then pushing the trim length. And I believe that what's invalid syntax? Oh, the expression is probably not. I don't know. I don't even. So what was probably happening is that during that rename pass, when we did it, and I was complaining about, and what was it, the leg global, and I was complaining about the namespace not being empty, it was showing me just the container selected because the container contains several items that had not been renamed, and that would have been control and guide in the case of the leg global. In the case of the leg component, we would also have the form. That's because the script is just flawed. It should be doing the replace and then doing the trim length separately, so that the things like the deform and so on respond as well. Or it's not impossible that we're not included in my selection, but anyway, Maya was doing the right thing. And because I was looking at an area of the selection, I didn't have the DAG fully expanded. I had not realized that it was actually telling me, yeah, I've selected some stuff, it's up here, but it's also containers, so I'm gonna lightly highlight your container. Now to validate that crazy idea, though it bothered me because it actually seemed to delete the container. So let's see if I am right about it. Okay, is it highlighting the container? Where is my leg container? So it's not highlighting the container, so there might be both a mistake and a bug. So let's manually despace this stuff. Normally, like at this point, you could just remove that namespace because these are spaced by the DAG anyway, so we don't have the component name in there, and it is not a problem. Now at that point, I would expect this to contain nothing. And no, it still does contain stuff. Hyper layout 5. So that hyper layout 5 might actually be the container layout. Which is fair enough. Let's see where... So it's not responding. It's probably because this is considered an auxiliary node and I'm not showing an auxiliary nodes here. Yeah. So if you don't know it, quite a few nodes, thankfully, because there's a crap ton of them, especially the scripty stuff and the hyper layouts, are auxiliary nodes. And it happens, and let me see if that is the case for this one, that, yep, the container, sorry, the container keeps track of its own stuff with a hyper layout, which is the same thing that actually does a bunch of other things. So it is the same thing they use to save bookmarks. If you want to move the position of a node in the graph, it's like position X and Y and all these things. There's, I believe, there's going to be a hyper layout for every tab you have open. It is also a collector of sorts where it's used to select several things and pushed into the container. I don't quite know why that decision. I'm not super fond of it, to be honest, but maybe they had good reasons for it back then, or you know, they were always planning the container to be a compound kind of thing, and maybe they were like, oh, we're gonna eventually leverage these for proper compounding, and the UI didn't work out. Anyway, it's a pain in the back, and because you almost always have auxiliary nodes off, this is unlikely to be named. So, but it is gonna come in the namespace, so that would have explained the bug. It might still not be a bug. At this point, I'm more inclined to say that it would have been just this stuff that we didn't track coming through. Hopefully that makes sense to you. I am gonna rename it to something sensible because just hyper layout bothers me. And this is basically the member list for the container. So Lego member list. I might go and get super retentive about renaming everything around. It's the kind of stuff where if you're careful about merging the namespace, you might clash and you just get renamed with another number at the end. These are the nodes that you normally don't want to know about unless you're willing to instrument the rig. And yes, if this was, you know, properly tooled and instrumented and all of that, come on, save. Nothing will be called with these stupid names, I can promise you that. So we changed that one for now. And yeah, you can see that as if you have auxiliary nodes on, as you save anything, it goes like, oh, okay, editor save tabs info, and you can see it here. Now that is the kind of stuff where like it's so much pollution where you go, okay, don't show auxiliary node, that stuff will go away. I'm still not willing to say that at this point that it was a Maya bug. I'm inclined to say that it was just my mistake and the fact that there's stuff coming in all over the place. So if I select the contents of that, see at this point it's like probably I'm not showing the shapes, so it was not part of the selection yet. It's just my script is super, because these are called diagnostic cubes like these. Now that we have the joints and everything, we're probably gonna get rid of these at some point soon. So fair enough. Yeah, let's stop quacking about all that crap. I think at this point I've elaborated on how stupid I was enough. I think that puts us where we want to be with this one. I reckon at this point now it's not too early any longer to test. Let me bump the scene up just in case. To test guiding, de-guiding, so that should be fine and undoable. So that one, I'm still running as a command. No, actually I did have a swap command saved, so let's try and be fancy. If you're wondering, I mean at this point I've done it a million times, so but this is the command, it's available on GitHub. It's actually being written live on stream, so you probably, if you care about scripting in the least, you probably should go through that exercise rather than use these. It's pretty hard-coded in terms of like what standards I expect. They're exactly the ones used on stream. You can use it if you want. So swap that and swap the global. Let's see, has it worked? Yes, so the global is now de-guided. Very good. Now, will that have the role? No, where have I put the role? Oh, we're still using, yep, okay, I know what I'm doing. Adding parameters in this case. So, okay, that's the IK working without the FK being affected, which makes me very happy. And that's the FK working. So IK is in. This is gonna get affected, but we don't care all that much. At this point, I mean, it's like the swap just allows us to test, then you will delete the guide anyway. So if there's some interference between the up vector and like the up vector control and the guide, you don't care. Eventually the rig that gets published is gonna have it blasted away. The only thing left to test, I reckon, is the IKFK blending, which I actually haven't tested on the other one. I probably should have. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't, we'll see. Yeah, seems fine. It's all rotationally and stuff. Cool. I think I've only moved controls, but just in case, I'm gonna slam the undo and check my log. This is all select. And I've undone the swap, and I've undone the second swap, and this is still responding. This is still responding. This is still responding. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna confess that I'm actually quite pleased. All right. Whew. So we've been going for an hour now. I'm torn on whether I want to do the full. Like, do we have any questions? Because I wouldn't mind taking questions for like 5 minutes, and then doing the full offline, because there's not gonna be any novelty in it whatsoever. So pile them up if you have any, like at least loosely rigging related, maybe, or stream related. In the meantime, I'm gonna set the stage to get the foot done, and let me ensure that. Oh, come on, give me a break. I'm gonna ensure that I got rid of the namespace. Yeah, I did. So that's a leg done. That's a leg global done. The input was a triviality, which makes me very happy. And it should also be connected to that. Yeah, the orientation is funky, but it's not on the other. So there's one connection that still needs sealing. Maybe I'll fix that, because that is that. I wonder if it's the handiness that's doing it, but it shouldn't be. So let's have a quick look, and let's make that the end of the stream then. Our task is to suppress what is hopefully the last bug. So so the buffer is connected, it's just not being taken anywhere interesting. Whereas in this case, so there's one connection missing, there you go, which is the X connection. That was surprisingly easy to find. What is the equivalent for this one? So am I pinning by default? No, I'm not here. What, like R, like L? What am I doing here? What is going on? Is this de-guided? No, it's not. So it's the opposite. Leg L buffer Can you pause? What are you selecting? Give me a break for a second. Is connected with the triplet, whereas that's funky. There's some mode double linear. That is lost in the L. There you go. That makes sense. So, see, this is the price you pay for sloppy naming. So this is handing the X, and it's very similar to the hand negation thingy we had going on in here, but it's for the X translation. So I'd rather patch the scene in place than going through the whole pain of exporting and re-importing. And then we'll call it a day, because I think that that's the last thing we needed to do. So that will be for PosX, tempted to say. Let's, yeah. And it's translate X, but I don't care. I'm not gonna rename this. So leg L, leg R, recontainer leg R, painful scrolling waiting time. Probably could have used a subselection, but at this point. So the other thing I want to do is do the same thing in here. So this is, what is it? Straight up multiplication. So the order doesn't matter. So we want the handedness to work for us that way. And change the side. And lastly, Lego. I've seen the question, I'll get to it in a second. Container that, and that is it. That was the only bug we had, and it came from bad naming and whatever, like faulty IO. So the exporting does need to be patched, and we'll overwrite the version for that. We have fixed or done stuff to the leg L. So we're gonna export that. And that should be it for today. Not a bad day. A little bit boring in a way, I guess, but for a chunk of stuff got done. I got a good response out of the rig and out of the IO process, which, as I said, is it's not exciting, but it's excellent QC. So yeah, that seems to be responding to all of Legar, which is cool. The diagnostic cube doesn't get selected when I select from the asset, which surprises me a little bit. It'll get exported anyway, because tag items, like if they're included in an interval, like they'll go through anyway. So yeah, I reckon that's it. Yeah, still all of the same stuff. Ciao. My daughter is standing there staring at me. Leg L, sure. We'll replace it with leg left. And that's gonna be from the left leg. Oops, don't want that. Okay, so that's it for the actual rigging. Now the question is, might be off the wall. No, it's okay. Your professional work, how much do you do hand versus auto rigging that you've written? I should probably note that while I have been a character supervisor and rigging supervisor and all of that stuff for many years, I have been an engineer and a technology supervisor for quite a long while now. So I do still occasionally rig some stuff at work, but it's only when I want to test some idea or, you know, dog fooding something, like I've written tools or something like that. And and I'm actually using them. But I don't. My job isn't sitting down and rigging something. Uh, I'll do it occasionally because a lot of my work is on the rigging pipeline and tools and the data formats and the motion. It's like it's the whole performance stretch of the pipeline. But yeah. Now, more general terms, like the parts that I can disclose, trying to think. I'm trying to think what is public of our creature systems or not. I probably can't really say much, but we have stated publicly that like what you get into like large scale operation like you have in a 500 600 plus people company that works on feature animation, is that you try and build libraries of things. So you try and get several legs or one leg that can be configured into several options, or anything in between, and that is what people use. So what we've done here with the components, you will find something very similar, notionally at least, in many companies. Where the way I work and where the way things work at my workplace right now differ from a lot of places is that the, in a way, easy way of doing this is, and it's not easy at all, but it's the easier way of instrumenting a pipeline, is telling people, write a script that builds the component and write another script that hooks things up and all of that. A slightly harder but much better, in my opinion, way to do it is you let people creatively express themselves. You give them really good node library, a tool set that dresses up Maya, like you put lipstick on the pig, basically. It's a fair chunk of work, but basically what ends up happening is that you can create very complex, very powerful rigs and base component without writing a single line of script. And the only script lines you write might be callbacks or stuff like that. And then again, if the instrumentation and the pipeline allow it, it can be easily isolated, relatively easily, as in it will be efficiently isolated into a component that can be reused. So you instrument, like the way I work and the way a lot of stuff works at my workplace is, you instrument the workflow that's very similar to what we've been doing here, so that people can not deal with any of the bureaucracy that I've just dealt with here of exporting things manually and so on. If that makes sense. The obstacle in doing it on stream is that, unlike my personal tool set, which I use when I'm doing something, which I haven't touched for a bit now because I'm busy with other things, has literally hundreds of nodes that represent operations and options and stuff like that. The same is true for a lot of companies that they write their own node libraries. So at a very minimum, you should probably, to get a little bit closer to how I normally work, you should go and build yourself Sergey's math library, and then you need to instrument the whole authoring process. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if it answers what you asked, but that's how it goes for me. But you can't, unless you work at that scale, you can't really compare, small operations to the large ones. And you don't even want a small operation to work exactly the same as a large one, because there's a huge difference between having 24 people managing the same pool of assets that, with dependencies and everything, that keep crossing paths and being reassembled and versioned and put into several rigs, and you're turning around for a movie like Peter Rabbit, you're turning around, I don't know, dozens of creatures, many different taxonomies, like from birds to deer to rabbits to everything. It's like, and you have dozens of people working on those assets, like lobbing them over the wall for modeling and so on. if you have a team of like 5 or 6 people between modeling and rigging, you don't quite want to operate as formally as a large pipeline needs to. So there's many shades of gray. But I guess the part that you can take away from the code that will work at any scale is that if you have a very solid contract for what a component means, and you respect it and you write tools that enforce respecting it and so on, it's remarkable how little scripting you actually need to get stuff done. All right, if there are no other questions, I'll give you like 30 seconds. I'm gonna call it. It's not been a bad stream. What do people think? I'm still undecided if it was boring or useful or both. Oh. All right, going once, going twice, just going. Thanks everybody for watching. Super special thanks to all the people on Twitch as usual for keeping me company. I hope you enjoy these, and maybe if my daughter doesn't go absolutely insane, I will see you tomorrow. If not, I will see you the next time. And if you're on YouTube, I will see you whenever you play the next video probably. Thank you everybody, have a good day.